You're listening to Change Your POV Podcast, episode 28.
And it hurt me. It hurt me greatly. I mean, one of the biggest things was I didn't know how to estimate accurately. So by the time I got done with the job, I was eating the cost of the job. I would make X amount of dollars, but I would spend Y, and Y was greater than X. So I was spending more than I was making on these jobs.
Welcome to Change Your POV Podcast, helping you navigate transitions in your life, like entering and exiting college or the military, changing jobs or careers, and providing you with the coaching and mentorship needed to help you advance in your personal or professional life. Sometimes all you need is to change your point of view. Now, here's your host, Eddie Lazary.
Business. So you kind of got the gist of where I was going with that?
Yeah, it's the actual running of a business, or the actual everything else that goes into it is like you might have the best idea in the world.
Yeah,
but
right.
If you can't implement it,
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and that's exact. So it's basically my story, and I don't know if I got into any details with you on my story, but it's what I experienced getting out of the military, starting my own business, and the hardship that I endured that I would love to share with you tonight. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is Bennett and I on our weekly engagement. And today we're going to talk about, so we're very, very big on veteran entrepreneurship and owning your own business. And it could be any form of your own business. It could be, for-profit, a nonprofit. It could be, you're charging for your knowledge and services, like as a consultant. It could be selling products, like physical products. It could be any number of things. Business comes
1099 contracting.
So business comes in 1,000 different forms. And what we're going to talk about tonight is some of those different types of business idea or constructs you can have. But what I really want to get into is the meat and potatoes of the other side of business that you often don't hear about. And so, without further ado, welcome to Change Your POV Podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Lazary, here with Bennett, like I said. And we are going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off and I'm just going to kind of share with you my story. And then later on, we'll talk about different struggles and strategies and things relative to business. So I got out of the Army in 2005. And of course, I joined the Army right out of high school. So I literally barely graduated high school and got my sweet little diploma. Joined the Army, right? Literally, I think I took my graduation gown off and hopped on the bus and left, something pretty close to that anyway. And went through Salt Lake City, went through a basic training in AIT, both at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And then my first duty station was Fort Hood, Texas. So literally my first experience, spending any amount of time away from mommy and daddy and my brothers and sister was, joining the Army and off to this brand new world all by myself, basically. And so it was a scary time, it was a scary moment in my life. Where
was your boot camp again?
Fort Sill.
Fort Sill.
Yep. Both basic and AIT were at Fort Sill.
Okay.
And my girlfriend at the time and we had a baby boy when we were juniors in high school. So I graduated high school with a 1-year-old son. He is now 20 years old in college, thank God. And so, I was left with very little options. I had this, this new wife, this brand new baby, and had, no hopes to go to college. Like I said, I had barely graduated high school, so it's not like anybody was knocking down my doors. I didn't play any sports. I wasn't looking for any scholarships. So it was pretty bleak times for me. So joining the Army actually sounded like a pretty good idea. It was that or live, in my mom's basement, kind of that whole proverbial, living in the mom's basement thing. But I would have had my wife and my son with me at the time.
Probably could have been a really awesome gamer and blogger sitting in your underwear.
Hell yeah, yeah. So off I went and did my thing. And my first duty station was at Fort Hood, 4th Infantry Division, and then I was there for a few years, and then went to Korea for a year, came back to Fort Hood, and finished out my time in the Army at 1st Cav Division. While I was in 1st Cav, of course, deployed for a year in Iraq, came back. About 30 days after I redeployed, I got out of the Army. And so basically it was high school, Army, and then now this new world that was completely new to me. Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea how the real world worked, because when you're in the military, everything is kind of, done for you. I mean, you get called in by your staff NCO and says, "Yep, you've got your dentist appointment next Thursday. Don't miss it, or you're going to be on extra duty." So you go to your dentist appointment when you're told to, and you go to your doctor's appointment when you're told to, and you eat and drink when you're told to, and you clean up your shit, and you make your bed, and you do everything you're told to do. You really don't have to do a whole lot of thinking on your own. And when you do own your own vehicle, you have a 4-day weekend, your NCO's got to inspect your vehicle to make sure they've got a checklist where they make sure that your brakes are working, your brake lights are working, your windshield wipers working, to make sure you're driving.
Do you remember that shit?
You remember that? Hell yeah! So you literally, and you were provided with all the clothes that you could ever want and hope for, right? And all the shit, right? And so you literally didn't have to lift a finger. Everything was done for you, man. Everything. And then I get out of the Army, and I was so excited because, turning this new chapter in my life. And my dad and my brother lived in New England, and I've never been here before. And they said, "Yeah, come on up, live in New England," because I didn't really have any home roots anywhere anymore. At 10 years in the Army, and pretty much, back home is no longer back home, especially when all your family moves away in that time. Yeah. So I didn't really have a whole.
Friends are doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I didn't even keep in contact with my friends anymore. None of that. And my family had moved away, so my home of record was no longer my home of record. So I had nowhere else to go. I'm like, what the hell? Why not? So I moved up here. My dad decided he was going to help me pull together my own landscaping business. Okay, that's pretty. And one thing, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm pretty good with my hands. I know my limits, but there's pretty much, I could take care of, pretty much of anything. I can do my own plumbing. I could do electrical. I could do my own drywall, sheetrock, carpentry. I can turn a wrench, under the hood of my vehicle.
And if you don't necessarily know how to do it off the top of your head, there's always YouTube.
Yeah.
And you're not afraid to
exactly.
Get it done.
Yeah. Yep. So, pretty handy. And so I thought, landscaping business, how hard could it be? Right? Cut some grass, make some money. I'm all for it. So I move up here, and, we got, an enclosed trailer, a lawnmower, a flatbed trailer. I even got a bobcat, right? A bobcat trailer, all kinds of licky chewy toys and shit. And so there I am. I've got everything I need, and they even helped me with, getting the name of I picked the name of the company, but they helped me, register it with the state and do all of that good stuff to make it legal, because I knew nothing about any of that. So that was kind of done for me. I didn't even really have to kind of do that part of it. So here I am with this brand new company. I got all the logos and everything on my truck and on my trailer, and I got T-shirts made, right? I'm good to go. And I have no customers. And I have no idea where to even start with customers. Right. So I'm like, okay, so I got all this shit. I got to go figure out how I'm going to make money doing it now. So I've got no clue, how this even works. So I just start driving up and down, some neighborhoods thinking, yeah, I could cut grass here. So I start knocking on doors. Everyone's either cutting their own grass or they've already got somebody doing it for them. And then one guy was like, yeah, you could cut my grass. How much do you charge? And I looked at him like he had 3 heads. I'm like, I didn't think that far ahead. I had no idea how much I charged. I'm like,
Oh yeah,
well, I'm like, what's reasonable? What's a reasonable price, for you? And he's like, well, tell me what your average, rate is for something this size. And I had no idea.
You're like, I don't have an average rate.
Right. I'm like,
dude, that's my average.
yeah. I'm like, how's like, $60 every other week sound? And he says, all right, that sounds good. He jumped on it right away. I don't even know if that was the right price or not for that size yard, whatever. And I had no idea how to gauge it or anything.
Mm.
And I'm like, whatever, it's a job. So I got the job, and I'm starting to cut grass, and I started to pick up a few more customers here and there. And then I'm like, you know what? I got to figure out what my competition's doing, right? What are they doing, and what are they charging?
They're mowing everything you're not.
Yeah. So I call them up. Like I go through like the virtual yellow pages on Google, right? And I type in like landscapers in my area or whatever, and I get a few phone numbers, and I call them up, and I'm like, yeah, how much do you guys charge to cut grass? And they're like, oh, well, sir, we can't give you a price over the phone. We'd have to come out and actually look at your yard and our quotes based off of the time it would take to do, all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, so I'm making notes, time that it takes.
And we know that you're a shady landscaper that is trying to get our prices.
Yeah, well, they didn't know. I
know, but I'm just...
I concealed my name, everything. I was like, I don't know, Butch Diggity Dog or something, but I actually found, because I have my lawn, but I wanted a quote for a different lawn, like the type of lawns that I would be cutting. So I ended up finding this house that nobody was living in it. It was on the market, and I called up this landscaping place, and they met me out on like a Saturday to give me an estimate. And they're like, yeah, nobody lives here. I'm like, yeah, I'm the property manager. I'm responsible for keeping the the grass maintained, and I just don't have time to do it myself. What will you charge, right?
They're like, well, we already cut this lawn, so.
So they give me a price, and I'm like, oh, that's reasonable. I got a few more people coming to give me a quote. What did you base your quote off of? And he was like, well, I look at the size of the job, how many people it will take, how long it will take us to be on site, and the frequency, right? It's either weekly, bi-weekly, whatever. And so I start making these notes and start cataloging these notes, because my competition were offering free estimates. So in order for me to stay competitive, I had to also offer free estimates. And of course, like the word implies...
You know what I love? What a crock of shit. Free estimates.
Free estimates, yes. So like it implies, it's free. I don't make shit from
No,
that.
I know, but what would you charge somebody to come out and give you an estimate? I mean, anybody.
Well,
I'm just wondering if that actually happens.
Well, some companies have it's not just for landscaping. It could be like plumbers, electricians, like anybody that shows up to your house. Oftentimes, there's just a flat show up fee. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here at your house. I'm going to charge you a flat $40 to cover, my gas or whatever, right? My
yeah,
hour.
I understand that, but that's like the cost of doing business. I don't.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but there's a lot of places to do that. Like, I had an HVAC company come out last summer, and just for them to come to my house was $60.
That's
crazy.
Before they didn't do anything.
Before they did any, it was just $60 just to shake my hand. That was it. To shake my hand was $60. And then after that, it was whatever work and material, labor, whatever.
Damn.
So there's some landscaping companies out there that charge that initial. I show up to your house. I'm giving you an invoice, right, for $40 or something to cover the cost. Now, mind you, this was in 2006, 2007 timeframe, and the gas prices were pushing $4 a gallon.
About to go higher.
Yeah. So, I mean, driving around God's creation giving free estimates sure as the hell wasn't free for me.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. It wasn't free for me. And of course, your conversion rate, that's the number of people you talk to versus the number of people that you get a job from, is, less than 5%. So that means, in order to talk to in order to get one job, I'm talking to, 20 people or 20 estimates to get one job, some crazy thing like that. So, and I just completely botched that percentage ratio, but you guys can correct that if you feel so inclined to do so. But anyway, so it started to pick up and it started to grow, right? So there's kind of two different things with this story that I wanted to share. And the first one is when it came to cutting the grass, the actual product that I am providing, whether that's a service or an actual physical product, whatever it is your business is in the business to do, that's the actual, product that you're providing to the customer. That part of it I had down, right? For the most part, I could cut grass, not a big deal. But it was everything else above and beyond that took running a business that I had no idea what to do, right? So I'll just name a few things. I won't get into any specifics, but here are some things. If you're thinking about starting your own business and you don't know anything about, workers' compensation, insurance, taxes, depreciation, estimations, doing estimates, RFPs or requests for proposals, invoicing, terms, right? So when you give somebody an invoice, there's usually terms associated with it, and we can get into that a little bit if you'd like. All right, so there's these, the business acumen of business, right? POS or point of sale, right? So how is my customer going to pay me? Do I accept personal checks? If so, I run the risk of them bouncing, and then I've got to pay the cost to have it reclaimed and da-da-da-da-da. Or do I invest in a point of sale device like those, what they call them, cubes that you plug into your phone, and I can swipe somebody's credit card and receive payment that way, right? So there's these business elements of running a business that I knew nothing about. If I had somebody doing the back office stuff that knew that shit, and I was just out there cutting grass, then I think I would have been good to go. But I was doing both. I would literally spend all day, every day, 7 days a week, out there in the field doing the labor part of the job, only to come home at night and do the business part of the business. Doing estimates, putting in printing invoices and mailing invoices. I had a couple of guys working for me, so I had to figure out labor and get that off to the company that I hired to issue paychecks, which took out a certain percentage for insurance and workers' compensation and all of that, right? So I was spinning my wheels. I had no idea what I was doing with the business side of it. And it hurt me. It hurt me greatly. I mean, one of the biggest things was I didn't know how to estimate accurately. So by the time I got done with the job, I was eating the cost of the job. I would make X amount of dollars, but I would spend Y, and Y was greater than X. So I was spending more than I was making on these jobs. And when you're first starting out in business, that's kind of part of the deal. You have to almost expect that you're going to spend more than you're going to make, at least right off the bat, because you're figuring out this process, you're figuring out the systems, but you start to hone your craft and your skills. So that's the first part of it. So let me finish with the rest of my story, and then we'll open it up to some back and forth dialogue. And so the other part of the issue that I had was I was down for just making money any which way I could, and that involved doing whatever the customer wanted me to do. So I started out as a landscaping business, cutting grass, and then one of my customers one day says, "So I was thinking about putting in this paver walkway. Do you do paver walkways?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I do paver walkways." You betcha.
You're damn right I do. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but yes.
He's like, "Well, I'm thinking about putting one here." I'm like, "Well, you show me where you want to put it, and I will draw up you an estimate and let you know and see if we can move forward." He's like, "All right." So I measure it, right? I measure the width of it, the length of it, and I said, "All right, I'll have something for you in a couple days." So I go home after my long day of cutting grass, and I said, I tell my wife, I was like, hey, honey, we do paver walkways. And she goes, "We do what?" I said, "We do paver walkways." She goes, "What the hell is a paver walkway?" I was like, "I don't know, but I'm about to find out."
Oh, that's awesome.
I Googled that shit up, and I learned everything I can about paver walkways and how to do them. I need, I need everything from, these spikes that you drive into the edgers. I need edgers. I need obviously the pavers. I need a laser level. I need like all of this extra tools, this whole tool setup that I don't currently have, right? Which is going to cost money, but I'm like, you know what, whatever. If I can make a little bit of money on this job, buy the tools, so I'm at a negative cash flow, right? And I'm going to buy all this capital expenditure, but at least I can, get this one under my belt, take some pictures, advertise it, right? All this good shit. And so I do. That's exactly what I do. And I buy. So I ended up doing this guy's Paver Walkway, and I ended up with almost 2 skids of pavers extra.
Oh shit!
Because I didn't do my estimations right. So of course I bought it, and now I own it, and I'm not going to charge it off to the guy. I only charge him for what I use. So now I got 2 skids of pavers that that I'm just gonna store out at my house, hoping that somebody else is going to use someday, right? So it was a learning experience from hell, but it was awesome. I got it done, knocked it out. I totally ate my ass on that job, but you know what? It was part of doing business. And so, of course, I was there for probably a week doing this job by myself because, anytime you're doing something new, it takes longer, and there's, and of course the guy would come in and check up on me once in a while. How are things going? And he'd ask me questions, and I would stand there all astute and sound like I knew what I was talking about. yeah, blowing smoke up his ass, right? That's what I was doing. And then, he had a neighbor 4 houses down come by. He saw my truck out there all week long, and he, came up the driveway and checked out the work I was doing. He goes, "Oh, that's awesome." He goes, "Do you do retaining walls?" I'm like, "You betcha, I do retaining walls. I absolutely do." And he goes, "Why don't you come over when you're done here and check out this retaining wall project that I got?"
Do you want them to look like this pavers that I've got right here? I mean,
yeah,
so I can use this shit that I just bring.
So I get home, I'm like, "Honey, that's," and she says, "What?" And I said, we do retaining walls." She goes, "What the hell is a retaining wall?" I was like, "Don't know, about to find out." So I hopped out, same thing. I figure it out. I figure out how to do retaining walls. Guess what? A whole nother set of freaking tools I got to go buy.
Shit.
So I go buy that shit now. And so I get on this guy's retaining wall, and of course I'm a little bit more conservative this time. Except this time, instead of spending all kinds of money on extra shit that I don't need at the end, I'm way conservative. So I buy just a very, very little, and then I have to drive my ass all the way over to the place where I bought the pavers, which is probably 15 miles away.
Get more.
And go get more, and then come back and use. Oh shit, don't have enough. So I drive back 15 more miles, pick up some more, and come back. Oh shit, don't. So I ended up probably spending the same amount of money back and forth in time and gas than if I had just bought some extra shit and had some left over. Right? So a couple weeks later, I was doing my free estimates again, and somebody calls me out to his house to do an estimate, and he says, "Do you do stump grinding?" I'm like, "You betcha, I do stump grinding." I said, "Where's the stump you need?" And ground out. And he says, "Oh, it's right here." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." I go home. I tell my wife, I say, "Honey, we're grinding a stump this weekend." She goes, "How the hell do you do that?" I said, "I have no idea." I ended up calling another landscaping company that does this, and I asked them, basically if they could provide me a quote over the phone. And they gave me a quote over the phone. Thank God I didn't have to try to figure out where to take them to get an estimate. But they gave me a quote over the phone, so I had some ballpark figure that I was going to charge. So that's basically, I kind of charged that amount. But I realized after the fact, when I ate that job as well, that the price that they gave me probably included the fact that they owned the equipment to do the job. I had to go and rent all this shit. So I had to go rent this stump grinder because I wasn't about to go buy an $8,000 stump grinder. So I'm grinding this guy's stump down, right? I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how in the hell I didn't kill myself with this stump grinder machine, but I do. So I finished this stump grinding thing, and this guy's neighbor, across the street neighbor, he comes over and he goes, "Hey, yeah, I see you doing some work over." He goes, "Do Do you drop trees? Now, if you've never been in New England,
Oh yeah, man, I know.
all right,
I grew
we're
up in
talking
Connecticut, so I know.
we're talking 60-foot pine trees,
Yeah,
right? That are just huge, that will take out a house in one fell swoop. So this guy says, "Yeah, I got this pine tree in my front yard that I'd like to get, dropped." I'm like, "Yeah,
Now,
sure, no
needless to
problem."
say, people go to like college. People go to school to learn how to freaking drop trees.
Yeah, well, I didn't know
To
that.
arborist school.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So I'm like, I go home and I look it up, right? And there's so basically
Just go
the
watch
way
an
this
episode of Axemen. I'm good.
way this shit works is like there's like these spikes that you strap to your feet,
Right.
and you use these spikes
Like
to climb
that.
up the tree,
Uh,
and you tie off like a rope, like a pretty hefty rope.
right, and then you chop
Off,
it off one piece at a time. And
well, no. So what you do is you use that as like a guide rope to kind of put some tension on. So when you're dropping the tree, it actually falls the right direction, right?
right.
Because this tree is literally right up against this guy's house. So if it falls the wrong way, it's going through his house.
Oh my God.
So yeah, you ready? You ready for this? Hold on, it gets really good. So, now, mind you, my company has insurance, but I don't know if it's enough to cover a whole freaking house. But I'm about to test the limits of my insurance company right here. So I tell my wife we got to go buy spikes to strap to our feet so we can climb the 6.
You ever watch the lumberjack shows with Donnie? Because that's what I'm about to do.
Yeah, and I got my brother with me too, right? Mr. Evil Knievel fears nothing, right? He agrees to be the guy that strapped these spikes onto his feet and climb up this fucking 60-foot tree. So we go to the store, and it was like a specialty store because not just everybody
carries tree climbing spikes.
Yeah. So I should have known, right? That the lights were going off, or should have been going off when I brought these things up to the counter, and the guy behind the counter looks at what I'm buying, and he looks at me, and he looks back down at the spikes, looks at me again, and he goes, "You sure you want these?" I'm like,
"Yep."
I'm like, "Yeah."
Absolutely.
He goes, he goes, "You know what they're for?" It's like, "Hell yeah, they're for climbing trees." He goes, "How many have you climbed?" And I'm like,
"None."
None. And he goes, "All right, man. Good luck." So I buy these spikes. We drive out to the house, and here's my plan, right? I'm a pretty smart guy. I got a long rope.
I'm really good with my hands too.
Yeah, I got a long rope. So my brother is going to climb up this tree, right, all the way to the top, and he's going to tie off this rope once he gets to the top, and he's going to scurry his ass back down, and then we're going to hook the other end up to the end of my bobcat and kind of pull it out into the middle of the street to provide a little bit of tension. And then we're going to start cutting the backside of the tree with the chainsaw. So as it starts to fall, the tension, right? Oh, perfect. I mean, that's like awesome, right? Classic. All right. So in order for this
fucking go wrong.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay. So in order for this shit to work, you really got to get to the top of the tree. You really have to. I mean, there's no two ways about it. I mean, there's tree climbing spikes for a reason. My brother, Mr. Fearless, he gets maybe 15 feet up the tree, right? 15 of the 60 feet he gets up the tree, and he's up there hugging that shit like a koala, right? Shaking his ass off. Talking about,
I'm not good anymore.
He's like, "This is good, right? This is good." I'm like, "Dude, like, no. Like, I can almost reach up and touch you. Like, you got to go higher." So he's like, he climbs a few more feet up, right? He's like, "Is this good?" I was like, "Dude, it's a 60-foot tree. You've got to get at least 2/3 of the way up. At least." And he couldn't do it, man. He was just like petrified, frozen. I'm like, "Oh my God. Last thing we need is for him to fall." All right. I'm like, reach up as far as you can and tie this rope off, and we'll just make it work. He goes, "All right." So he does. He ties his shit off. And we get it. We get down to the bottom. He hops into the bobcat. He pulls back a little bit of tension. I grab the old chainsaw, and I get like halfway through the tree, and I tell him to back up a little bit, apply a little bit more pressure. And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm nervous that this thing is going to fall on the house and shit." And I'm like, "Oh man, just don't know what I'm going to do." And all of a sudden, I literally cut halfway through the tree, halfway through the base of this tree, and the fucking rope snaps because there was so much pressure. It snaps. So snap! This tree now starts swinging back towards the house, out towards. I mean, this thing is swaying. You can hear it cracking on the bottom. I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna put this tree in this dude's house. I'm like, holy shit. It was, I mean, literally, I'm shaking, right? I mean, I've gone through IEDs and Iraq that didn't scare me this time. So, I'm like, I'm a pretty handy guy, but I know my limits. I should have called.
Should have known your fucking limits.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, and this is a Sunday, and oh shit, what am I gonna do? I'm like, I tell the guy, and he's standing there like, what are you gonna do? I'm like, I got this, don't worry. I go back in my car. Now
This happens.
Yeah. So now, yeah. So now I got this. Shit. I got this cut halfway through this tree, and any gust of wind is gonna blow this damn thing into this freaking guy's house, right? I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? So I go and I'm thumbing through like the yellow pages on my phone, just trying to find somebody who can do this shit. So I call this, and I'm calling, right? Everybody's closed on Sundays, of course, right? Everybody. I finally call some dude that lives practically in Maine, right? Practically in Maine. He picks up the phone, and you can tell he's like half lit, right? And I'm like, dude, you drop trees? He goes, yeah, like Monday through Friday, and sometimes on Saturdays. He goes, it's Sunday, buddy. I'm like, dude, I don't care how much you charge. I'll double it if you could come down here and drop this tree. And he goes, all right, well, my girlfriend's going to have to drive me because I'm a little drunk. I'm like, all right, man. I give him the address.
Holy shit.
He hops in his truck. He's like almost 2 hours away. So now I've got 2 hours to watch this tree. Like, oh, just scary times, right? And so finally this dude shows up and he pulls out like the gear, like the proper gear, like the actual shit that you use to climb a tree. Right? I didn't know that there was supposed to be like this cable thing that wraps around the
strap and the whole thing.
Yeah. We didn't have that. We just had the
No wonder your brother was shitting himself.
Yeah. Yeah, no shit, right?
Because he's like trying to climb the tree, hugging it.
Yeah, this guy's got like a 5-point harness, a cable wrap, like he's like got the shit, right? We were no way equipped.
Man.
Like one pair of like spiked cleats is not the right shit. It just isn't. Not only that, but we were using like 550 cord, right? This dude pulls out like this 2-inch freaking rope. Like I'm like, oh my God, this guy. So this dude, he like not only that, but he's got this little chainsaw that he's got like on a bandolier, like a little like a C-hook thing.
Right.
And he like cranks that shit, starts it as he's climbing up the tree, and I'm like, okay, why is he hauling a chainsaw? Why? Because he's cutting off the limbs as he's going up so he can get high enough.
Right.
Duh, right? Why else would he be having?
Why wouldn't he?
Yeah. So he's like, he's like, he gets up to the top of this damn tree.
And meanwhile, the tree's already cut
in half. He looked at it and he's like, yeah, man, you're already halfway through. I'm like, yeah, that's why I called you. He goes, all right, well, it's a little trickier now that it's halfway. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's like, he's running the risk of this thing like dropping while he's at the top of this bitch. He climbs up there. He gets to the top. And now, mind you, he told me his girlfriend had to drive him in because he was already half lit, right? So this dude didn't have all of his faculties to begin with. Whatever. So he's at the top of the 60-foot tree, and he starts swinging and howling like a freaking like this dude was like crazy nuts. So anyway, he ties off the rope to the top of the tree. He does some other shit, and he repels. He like literally like shoots backwards off of the top of the tree and repels all the way down to the bottom. Right. Like in like 2 like leaps. I'm like, oh my God, this dude is like by this time you can imagine this is a pretty dense neighborhood community kind of a thing. And by the time this shit's all going down, like every neighbor for like 6 blocks have all gathered and like watching the fucking show on Sunday afternoon, right?
Yeah, like lawn chairs and beers.
Like, yeah, like the Super Bowl could have been on. These guys were out there watching this shit, right? So anyway, he goes, all right, where do you want this dropped? I'm like, well, I want it to fall not on the house.
Anywhere but on the house.
I don't care, just not on the house. And he's like, all right. And he finished, he goes to his truck, he grabs a can of Coors, I think it was. He pounds a can of Coors. He literally cracks it open, pounds it empty, and he walks out into the middle of the street and he puts this can in the middle of the street and he walks back. And I'm looking at him like, is that like a Lucky Charm thing? Like, what's that all about? He goes, I'm going to drop the tip of this tree. I'm going to hit that can. I'm like, you're shitting me. And he goes, watch. And he stands back there. He's like, nee, nee, nee. Of course, he's got, mind you, I've already cut halfway through the tree, so he's got to overcompensate for my ignorance.
Your asinine cut.
Yeah. So he's like, nee, 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 nee. And he makes a few more cuts, and he's kind of eyeballing it and shit. And next thing you know, you hear it crack, crack, crack. And sure as shit, that thing did not just drop right on top of that pop can and crush it. It was just spectacular. It was such a spectacular sight. Like, literally, there was like 4 other neighbors that all came up to this dude and it's like, can you drop my trees while you're here? So he had not only made money on me, but he made money on like 4 other houses that afternoon. So what's the moral of the story? So the moral of the story is this. You got to understand the business acumen of business, number 1. And we can get into that in a minute. But number 2, and probably more important, is you have to really understand what your business is, and more importantly than that, what your business is not. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with expanding your business, getting different ideas, reaching out a little bit, even saying yes, but you also have to learn to say no. Know your limits, know what you can and can't do, and let me tell you, I never ground a stump after that again because that was bullshit. I never dropped a tree again because that was too damn scary. But I did continue to do paver walkways and retaining walls. And then I got into irrigation, which was pretty cool. So that's my story. But at the end of the day, I didn't know enough of the business acumen that the business that I started ended up going under. It only lasted just a little over 2 years, and I couldn't sustain it any longer because I didn't know enough about the business part of the business. And I then made the decision that I needed to go and get some education. So I enrolled in my undergraduate degree at the time, a bachelor's degree in business administration, because I knew that if I was ever going to own my own business, you don't need a college degree, but you need to at least understand some ins and outs of your business or have somebody that you're going to hire to do it for you.
It's called a skill set.
It is, very much so. Yeah.
And nowadays you got a lot of guys, they might have bright, fantastic, shiny new ideas. But if you have this idea, but if you don't have the skill set, you could be a go-getter. You can be you can have all the freaking, so much credit nowadays is given to heart and
just grit,
right? The ability to go out there and just, take chances and all that shit.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, if you don't have a skill set, what the fuck are you doing? Right?
Yep. And I'm not bringing this up because I'm trying to scare anybody out of owning their own business. I'm a huge proponent of self-employment and being an entrepreneur. It's just important to also understand that there's 2 sides to that coin.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to cut this one here. If you want to listen to the conclusion of this episode, I've got a special release. Tune in tomorrow for, yes, the conclusion of this episode. I don't know about you, but I recorded this a while ago, and I just listened through it, and I laughed my ass off all the way through. I can't believe how ridiculous I was in owning my own business. So if you didn't find this educational, then you probably at least found this entertaining, I would hope. But I hope there's some takeaways here as well. But conclusion tomorrow, when you tune in, will be Bennett and I will get into a little bit more of the specifics of the business part of owning your business. And it's something that I think everyone should at least take into consideration or think about when they're owning their own business. Owning your own business is a great and wonderful thing. You just got to be a little bit smart about it and be educated about certain aspects of the business so you can ensure that you'll be successful for years to come. So thanks for tuning in. You can find all the show notes for this episode over at changeyourpov.com/episode 28. Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. We have a lot more great content headed your way. If you want to reach out to me directly and let me know how much of a dumbass I was when I owned my own business doing landscaping work, you can email me at eddie@changeyourpov.com. I would love to hear from you. Also, head on over to changeyourpov.com/free book for your 30-day free trial and a free audio download from audible.com. All right, until next time.
Thanks for listening to Change Your POV podcast with Eddie Lazary. Check out more content by going to changeyourpov.com. And remember, your ability and willingness to change your point of view will open doors of opportunity.